Your responsibility is greater than your emotions. Your responsibility is greater than your emotions. Have you ever realized that when there are days when you maybe don't feel like going to work, or you don't feel like doing the chores or the tasks that you need to do, even though you might at times, because of whatever fluctuating emotions, not feel like doing them, because of the fact that it's your responsibility, right, to get up and go to work, and that responsibility has a paycheck towards it at the end, you go about, having to carry out the responsibility regardless of how you feel, because of the fact that it's a responsibility, right? It's a duty, and it's expected of you. Almost to say that the responsibility in that situation is bigger than your emotions, right? It takes precedence. Such that in the decision that you could make, you say, I could stay at home the whole day and do nothing, not show up at work, or I could carry out my responsibility and do it. Despite how not nice it is, you sometimes have to get up and do it. And it's true, I think, for many people, and sometimes you'll have the fortune of doing work that you love, where if you're working on a fulfilling project or whatever. But there's a point I want to get to. Sometimes when it comes to the area of giving value, of serving, of giving out gifts, there will often be days when you don't feel like doing it. There'll be days where you don't feel like, if you put a target to, write, there'll be days when you don't feel like writing. There'll be days when you don't feel like preparing whatever you have to prepare. There'll be days where you don't feel like producing or whatever. And it's oftentimes in moments where no one sees you, and you could get away with not doing it. But there's something that pushes you when you realize that giving value or serving is also a responsibility. And as with most responsibilities, the responsibility is greater than the emotion. What do I mean by that? I've often said, and I keep saying it often, that the world suffers a loss when you and I don't give the value that we have to give. And I think of a text, if I were to refer to the Bible, in Genesis chapter 12, where Abraham is called by God. And it says in Genesis chapter 12, where God says to him, get out of your country and from your kindred and from your father's house and go to a land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation and make your name great, and I will bless you. And then it says, and I will bless them that bless you and curse them that curse you. And then in the last line of verse 3, it says, and in thee, or in you, shall all families of the earth be blessed. Powerful, powerful text. God is saying to Abraham that in you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. In other words, that there's a blessing that Abraham has to give to the world, which if he does not, the entire world will suffer a loss, because it says, in you shall all families of the earth be blessed, meaning without you, all families of the earth will suffer a loss, right? That there's a blessing that we'll not get. And I believe it's true for everyone who's called. That if anyone is called to some form of ministry, to some form of giving value, some form of responsibility, the world suffers a loss if you don't fulfill that responsibility. The same way that if you are, say you are a cashier at a supermarket, if you do not show up at work for that day, the supermarket will suffer a loss, because of the fact that you have a part to play that is significant. You might think, yes, you're replaceable, but you have a part to play which, if you don't play it, the world suffers a loss. And that's true of the value that we have to give. There will be times when you don't feel like, writing, or don't feel like producing a video, or don't feel like, singing, or don't feel like preaching or teaching, or, working on whatever you're working on. But you have a responsibility in that the world suffers a loss when you don't do the thing that God has called you to do. This message, to be honest, is more for me than it is for you. Sometimes you might, fall off the wagon on some things and not give your best, or feel like you're not giving your best, or could give more or better. And that can discourage you, right? And that can get to a point where you're like, maybe I'm not, all cut out, or not giving, what optimum performance I could. And realizing that you're not performing at your ultimate best can make you feel as though, no, let me rather just, hold back or slow down or whatever. Without realizing, at least in that moment, that giving value is not a matter of whether you feel like it or not. the responsibility or the blessing that God has put in you and I, in whatever form it is, in the gift that He's given us, in the tasks or abilities that He's given us, in the responsibility and roles that He's given us, it's not a matter of how we feel, but it's the fact that there's something that the world needs that you can give. Sometimes the world may or may not even recognize that, but you still have to give it, and I still have to give it. And so when you realize, for some people, when you realize that your responsibility is greater than your emotions, about saying, okay, it's not about how much I feel or how well I feel or how not well I feel. It's about the fact that there's a need that you have to fill. You might not always realize it. It might not always be appreciated, but you have a responsibility that is greater than your emotion in that time. And it is a blessing, that responsibility. God has given it to you and I. It might be small, it might be large, but it's still yours. And so there is a responsibility that comes with giving value. When I say giving value, it encompasses, serving, doing our best in our work, producing, writing, whatever it is that it's your area of giving value. That is a responsibility that is greater than your emotion. And in these times when you might not have the emotions to want to go about doing it, there's a realization, or you have to realize that you have a responsibility. In the times when you might not have a feeling for it or a motivation for it, you have a responsibility. I think of parents who might be working a job that might not be so fun for them, but who think of the fact that, hey, if I don't work, then I won't have money, and I won't be able to feed my kids. For them, they're thinking about the greater vision and responsibility of feeding their kids. To say, okay, I need to take care of my family, my children, etc. So that responsibility overrides the feeling of not wanting to go in today, or not wanting to deal with one or two sometimes uncomfortable obstacles. But there is a responsibility that comes with it, and the responsibility is greater than emotion. It's not to say that one should succumb to abuse, obviously, but it's to realize that emotions, as fluctuating as they are, as fluctuating and as ever-changing as emotions typically are, they can be met with the consistency of responsibility. That as much as my emotions might fluctuate, I feel like doing and not feel like doing, motivation can fluctuate, responsibility doesn't. And you have a responsibility which, if you don't fulfill, the world suffers a loss. And that's a testament to value. Say that you and I are valuable in the specific spheres, specific corners and gifts that we have to give. Like to Abraham, God says to us, I will bless you, and in you shall all the families of the earth be blessed. That if God has blessed you in some form or fashion, that blessing can extend to many other people. I hope this will be an encouragement to someone who might be discouraged, and it might be a motivation to someone who might have to pick up where they left off, and to continue giving your best in the responsibility and the value that you have to give. Wishing you all the best, and we'll catch each other on the other side. Much love. Speak soon.